This podcast is recorded on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam peoples.
British Columbia, I've seen your mountains high, seen your pretty rainbows and your blue crystal skies, watched your winding rivers as they flow around the bend. To me you're not a stranger, you'll always be a friend.
Coming to you from the West Coast, this is Politicos. Today is May 14th, 2026.
I'm Scott Lundbaum.
And I'm Ian Bushfield, sacrificing my 15th wedding anniversary to be with you, Scott.
Damn, we could have rescheduled this to yesterday.
That would require forethought and planning, which neither me nor my spouse had the time for this week.
Well,
she almost didn't
anyway.
even remember the day. Thank you. We have some stuff to talk about, though, and it's not begrudgingly. It's recall time here in BC. It's officially been the minimum amount of time since the election to allow recall petitions to be filed. And federally, Mark Carney is going to test how far voters will let him go. The answer is probably as far as he fucking wants, but we'll see if killing the whales is the line in the sea. Go to patreon.com/politicos and support the show. I had a great message in my work email earlier this week where someone introduced me to some bureaucrat randomly. And he's like, wait, are you Ian Bushfield from Politicos? And I was like, yes, this conversation is off the record for work purposes. I wear many hats. But once a week, I talk shit about politics, and that's what we're here to do. So if you ever come across me or Scott, send us a nice word, because it boosts our egos and reminds us why we do this. Here in BC, as I mentioned, recalls are open, and the first one filed is against Vancouver Kilchena MLA Dallas Brody.
Did we all saw this one coming?
Yeah, there's a campaign targeting Tara Armstrong as well. I don't know when they're officially going to file, but
If you were to guess the two ridings that, just going off some basic info about what each of those ridings are like, this one would have been the one I would have expected to go first.
yeah, City of Vancouver. I mean, it's the
It's like
more
Deep West Side,
conservative.
though, but like, even
Yeah,
so.
it's the more conservative part that used to be Andrew Wilkinson's riding, but
And Kevin Falcon's briefly.
yeah. But Dallas Brody is not quite the fit, I think, for many Vancouver voters. I'm sure she's got some supporters, but this is the kind of situation where the NDP voters weren't big fans, obviously, given as she was elected as Conservative. The Conservatives weren't big fans, given they kicked her out of the party, and she's continued to cause hell for them since. So her natural allies are few and far between.
Yeah, also, it's worth remembering that she ran as a Conservative in that riding in, what was it, the by-election against Kevin Falcon back when the Liberals were the default party opposite the NDP, and got 10% of the vote, if my memory serves.
6.6.
Oh, that's even worse than I thought.
698 votes.
Yeah, so party affiliation, and particularly the party affiliation of not being the primary not NDP party, carries a significant amount of the load in terms of getting her elected the first time. So it's not a case where the riding is, deeply attached to Dallas Brody, the individual. So I could see that being one thing that will help this recall petition along. That said, this is not the case where the recall has been triggered yet. It's the start of the signature drive that runs until July 20th, where the people pushing this recall petition are going to have to do a lot of legwork on this one, because the threshold is, 40%?
40% of registered voters.
Which in this riding works out to 15,232 signatures they need to get in the next 2 months.
Which will be tough. In 2024, 22,000 people voted, period. So if they can get all the NDP voters, that's 8,700, all the Green voters, that's another 1,800, they still need more than that. So a bunch of non-voters and so forth. And that's kind of demonstrated by the history of recall initiatives in this province. There have been quite a few going back to 1997, and only in one case did the effort actually reached the required threshold, and that was in 1998. Paul Reitzma independent, formerly BC Liberal, for Parksville Qualicum, was taken down by Mark Robinson, who ran against him as a Green in the previous election.
But Mark Robinson did not then become the MLA.
No,
but
a different BC Liberal did.
Yeah.
But yeah, Reitzma was quite unpopular because it came out that he was ghostwriting letters to the editor to support himself and attack his rivals in the local newspaper. And the newspaper hired an ex-cop to do handwriting analysis to prove this, and they called him a liar on the front page. He also apparently tried to get free burgers on the ferries by saying, "I'm an MLA. That's a thing we get."
It's amazing. It's not a thing they get.
So anyway, they got 25,000 signatures in that drive because everybody hated that guy. The only other ones that have come close was Val Roderick was almost taken down in 2002, but they didn't get enough valid signatures. They got 13,000 signatures when they only needed 12,000, but only 10,000 of them are valid. So like here in Vancouver, Kilchenna, they don't just need 15,000. They probably need like 18 to 20,000 signatures once you take out some. Beyond that, you got a lot of ambitious efforts, like when they tried to take down David Eby in 2023 and ended up only getting 2,700 signatures. So despite having 271 canvassers, which was the most of almost any of these efforts. So it's a complicated and difficult process. I wish them well because I'm no fan of Dallas Brody, but we'll see in July if they manage to take her down. Anyway, you can go to recallbrody.ca if you want to be a part of that campaign. Link is in the show notes.
And I'm sure we'll probably be talking about Tara Armstrong in a week or two in a similar manner.
That's recallarmstrong.ca, and there's no word on when exactly that will be approved, because I think they are planning to submit their paperwork for that. Well, another group of people did manage to get the votes they wanted. That was the BC nurses, who have voted to strike. Not just a little bit, but 98% of nurses said they're fed up and want a better deal from the province. It's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, those are, North Korean election level results on that. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes, because this is a authorization for the union to strike. They're not manning the pickets lines tomorrow kind of deal, but it's going to put some pressure on the government for sure.
Yeah, and nurses are in a tough spot because I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident they're designated essential service.
I mean, they gotta be. Like, it would be crazy not to. Like, people would die
of all
otherwise.
the services that are essential, very few will say that nurses shouldn't be in there. Like teachers, we can argue about a lot of other things, but like nurses spend their day and night keeping people alive. Yeah. So that might limit their ability to do job action. But at the same time, the issues on their plate are not simply just, we want more money. It's, our work is hell. We need more nurses. We need better paid nurses. We need better nurse to patient ratios. We need safer working conditions. That's actually a really big one. Things have gotten really rough in the healthcare system in the last 6 years, not just here, like globally. Just watch The Pit, which I'm doing right now.
Oh, that show is so good.
It's good, but terrifying and upsetting. Solidarity with the nurses. I hope they can find some support and manage to move the government to do more for our healthcare system.
Yeah, this one's going to be a tough one to solve, I'm sure, because the Globe and Mail article cites a number of 4,500 as the current staffing shortage, and that's not going to be an easy fix.
And that's something the government's been working on, right? Like,
yeah,
they're championing the number of nurses they brought from the US and elsewhere. Like, I think one of the problems is the working conditions are so rough these days that it's not just getting new ones in, it's stopping the outflow.
Yeah, and hospital safety, I mean, the province has done some work on it, but it's still a far cry from where it needs to be. Yeah, the whole thing's a mess. So it's not easy to solve. And the government is also working in a pretty tight fiscal position that it's managed to work itself into somehow. So they don't have like a lot of budgetary room either to work on this. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the negotiations for this come out. But like, there's not a lot of easy moves here.
Speaking of moves, the Conservative Party of BC has decided to move Amelia Boultby out of the party. She has been an independent MLA for a while, but she still held a party membership. The party, though, saw that she voted with the BC NDP to advance the FOI bill past second reading to committee. This followed the all-night debate they had last week on the bill, where the Conservatives tried to filibuster it. And more critics have come out against it, saying, why is the NDP reducing access to freedom of information requests and transparency?
Because they've been in government for, 8 years now? And
it's the trendy thing to do.
I mean, yeah, it's a trendy thing to do, but it's also the thing governments do when they've been in power too long. And, just find all those kind of compliance issues just a little annoying. So I want to get rid of it.
I don't know why Boultby voted for it.
Yeah, this is the biggest thing that I'm confused on.
I don't know what she was offered or if she just thinks these are reasonable changes, but she voted for it. Like, I disagree with that, but it's fine. It's a thing that can happen. Maybe she just wanted to continue debate. Maybe she was tired of the filibuster. The Conservatives view this as treason and stripped her of her party membership over it. Which is a reaction. Yeah.
It's a little weird that she's also still a member, even though she's not in caucus anymore. So that's like a little odd, because usually when one leaves a caucus voluntarily, they do sever things. She was voluntary, right? She wasn't one of the ones that was kicked out?
Yes, I believe she left of her own accord.
Yeah, so that is also odd. The supported another political party is usually you can't have memberships in two political parties. It's not, a vote didn't go the way we wanted it to, so you're out. Canada already has way too strong a party discipline system, and where you will get ejected from the party if one vote on a bill that was probably going to pass anyway is over the line. That's a sign of kind of an unhealthy level of party discipline, which is, this particular instantiation of that's a little unique, but as a general level is not uncommon in Canada, disappointingly.
No. Boultby and others have also fired back that it's bizarre that they've stripped her of membership but are happy to keep Han Chan as a member, even though he was pushed out of caucus for domestic violence charges. And they're like, well, why are you kicking this woman out, this strong, independent woman, while you keep this alleged domestic assault perpetrator in your party? Which, I don't know. There's no rules again. It's all a mess. I don't think they should have kicked her out necessarily, but I don't know if they have grounds to remove members for criminal charges being put against them. Yeah,
what happens is they get removed from caucus. I'm not sure there's actually a thing in the party constitution. It would be a somewhat unusual provision, as far as I know, for a party constitution to be able to revoke a membership. Not like representing or a nomination, but like just a general membership over a criminal charge that's not been proven in court yet.
Yeah.
There's usually just not a procedure for that in a party constitution.
Yeah. So the whole thing is messy.
Well, there might be like a general procedure. Yeah, most there would be like the board reserves the right to on like a very general ground, but like even that's
like you bring dishonor on our party.
Yeah, or where membership would reflect poorly on the party or something. But like often parties don't have those because various factions are worried about those being like weaponized in like leadership disputes and stuff. So like, Yeah, the fact that that didn't necessarily happen on Zhen's case is not like inherently suspect.
But
This one's weird though with
yeah.
Bruce Lee.
Probably better for her though. Like, I don't understand why she was keeping it. But now she's free.
Well,
good for you.
Like, I mean, they are doing a leadership race, and we'll dive into that more next week because the vote's actually coming up, so we should talk about that. But in this case, it might be the case that she was leaving options open depending on which way the party would go following a change in leadership.
Well, that's gotten a lot harder for her now, and I guess we'll see. I wonder if Eleanor Sturko is still a member. Who knows? Jumping to Ottawa now, Mark Carney's got a lot on his plate. He's been very busy this past week releasing discussion papers and new strategies, while also facing some criticisms all over the place. But let's start with today's news of the big national electricity strategy, Powering Canada Strong. I don't think I noticed that title before.
Saw someone joking about it on one of the social medias about how it's become a bit of a cliche in the government's various communications products. But hey, they're keep hitting the message.
It's called branding, Scott. It's called branding. It's not a national energy plan because it doesn't deal with all energy. It's just about electricity, but LNG features quite prominently, which is one of the things people picked up on quickly is, hey, our electricity can come from LNG. Like on the positive, yeah.
Prominently might be a stretch. There's like a single section in there of a couple of like 5 paragraphs or something.
It features more positively than I think people were hoping an electricity plan would necessarily be. So on the positive, this is a ambitious effort to try to double the electrical generating capacity of this country by 2050, building out interprovincial ties to have an east-west power grid as well as north-south, to all the provinces and territories connected better.
Yeah, they have an interesting graphic in the strategy showing the relative amounts of interconnection and how many megawatts go each way. On the north-south ones are an order of magnitude bigger than the...
Across the border, you mean, specifically, yeah.
Yes. There is pretty much no north-south connections between different jurisdictions within Canada, with the exception of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, because the territories not actually connected to the rest of the national energy grid for the most part.
BC is working on that with Yukon, but
but currently, like every territorial line marked out on this is under the proposed transmission project. Yeah,
and so that's part of the challenge we have is you have all these different provinces with different electricity systems. You know, a number of provinces are like BC, where you have a single provincially owned crown power generator. You have a couple provinces with sort of a mixed system or maybe a like private monopoly. You have Alberta's chaos market system of competing private producers. And they all have incentives not to trade to power to each other. If BC got to sell electricity to Alberta, we would run their system into the ground. All of their companies would go out of business to BC Hydro. And BC Hydro would probably buy them up within a couple of years, and then it would be BC Alberta Hydro, which that would be cool, but I don't think the Alberta government is interested in that. And so the real challenge for this plan is it's more of a, like most things Ottawa has to do, a plan to plan by consulting with the provinces on having a country.
Yeah, this is more like a plan for consultation than anything else. There's some good stuff in here, but yeah, a lot of it is we're going to work with various groups to try and do these things, which it's not. Some of that is inherent to the nature of Canadian federalism, but it's also kind of annoying that the government likes to talk about how it's building at a pace the country hasn't in generations, and The actual outputs from Ottawa are mostly discussion papers and strategies that lean pretty heavily on other entities in the country to move forward with in a significant way.
So beyond that, I guess there's a bit of focus on it's an energy plan, right? Or electricity plan. It's got all the kinds of things you'd expect. Is building a better electricity plan will help us grow our industrial needs, meet AI data center needs, manufacturing. It will help with climate goals. This actually does mention that to the important.
Yeah, it's pretty important. I mean, we're going to end up electrifying a lot of the economy that's not currently electrified and using other energy sources. And that's a big part of we need to double how much electricity we're producing in the next 25 years. Mm-hmm. Which is not a huge amount of time for a series of major infrastructure projects, which is also why in here a fairly significant chunk of this is how they're planning on reforming various permitting regimes to speed up electrical projects as well as other ones. So the various working paper or discussion papers out there are also much of the same content is featured in this strategy here of having a federal decision within 1 year once all the documentation and information on the project submitted, creating a Crown consultation hub to basically streamline and put under a single organization the effectuating the duty to consult, moving to single regulators and single federal decision points for various projects.
Are we still on the national electricity strategy, or are you into the getting projects built?
I was going to use this as a segue,
blurred, right?
because what one features heavily in the other.
Yeah. So the getting projects built discussion paper is not super surprising given everything Carney has talked about. It's more substantive, right? It's a bigger plan. The electricity stuff is all fine. I'll believe it when I see it. And the provinces wanting to maintain their fiefdoms remains the biggest problem. But on, the permitting and approval stuff, it's kind of trying to take the major project office idea and actually make it do stuff. Some of it seems largely fine. The idea of doing a lot of the assessments simultaneously rather than sequentially seems like a good way to get things going a little bit faster. Naturally,
that
when you
also off of changes the government brought in earlier to basically not duplicate provincial assessments and stuff. They've struck a lot of deals with various provinces. BC actually had one in place well before this, but that model is kind of being expanded further afield so that you basically don't have to duplicate your federal and provincial work on a lot of these.
As you get deeper into this plan, you get more and more criticism coming out. There's naturally a lot of criticism coming from environmental groups worried about reducing environmental groups and past environment ministers, criticizing kind of the removal of some of the protections and safeguards. The most prominent one was featured in a piece by Althea Raj, who points out that they're proposing removing some of the extinction protections for endangered animals like orcas, which most people in BC like. We like our whales, and we don't like them dying. And the government should have some duty to prevent them from dying from our actions. The government, of course, denies that's what their intention is. They are not out to turn whales into oil, even though that was once a profitable industry. They're going to use the oil to kill the whales this time, indirectly.
Yeah, that's probably the point that's going to potentially prove the most controversial. For the government's part, they are announcing a suite of measures regarding funding to whale habitats, increasing the minimum separation distance ships and boats have to maintain with whales. So it's Their argument is it's more of a nuanced rather than a simple ban approach, but that is definitely going to be a tough one politically for sure.
And it's like largely about allowing a pipeline to happen that no one's proposing to build yet.
It's also regarding the Roberts Bank expansion, I believe. Because
I was thinking more of the North Coast stuff, but sure, yeah.
Yeah, well, the whale consideration, specifically the southern resident killer whale, which is a Salish sea species.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very Port of Vancouver focused. The conflict there comes from, there's pretty important reasons to expand the Port of Vancouver, even putting aside Trans Mountain and the West Ridge terminal. And there, we're going to be diversifying international trade. Well, Port of Vancouver is by far the largest port on the West Coast. And a lot of that trade is going to be going out on ships, leaving Vancouver and coming into Vancouver. So that traffic will be part of the impact on that. And, there are an important national interest at stake here. So it's a tough balancing act on this one, and it's easy to focus on the oil aspect, but it's hardly the whole story.
There's another big chunk in here that might prove controversial is its idea of creating federal economic zones, which it describes as areas like transportation corridors, telecom networks, energy production and transmission, and industrial regions, so quite broad. Using these, they would remove the need for separate project reviews, making the permitting process simpler and reduce risk for investors. We don't have a lot of special economic zones in Canada. Ford has proposed a couple through his Bill 5 that was quite controversial. Around the world, the laws don't apply areas to different amounts. Like sometimes it's just an easier pathway, and other times it's like there's no labor law there. And it's unclear how far they want to go with this, but it makes me uneasy when you start carving out parts of the country to say that these, standards we have set for everyone and everything, both to protect people from exploitation and the environment from degradation, just the law is free there. You could just build away.
So the proposal doesn't mention labor at all in any of this. It seems much more focused on the permitting and approvals prospects here, which makes sense. And basically the idea is that if we're going to make this certain area be the thing that's focused on like transportation projects or major transmission lines or pick an industry like electric vehicle manufacturing or whatever on there, that rather than going through a project by project, lot by lot approval on it, we're just going to do all that work up front and make it so that once we do it once for the whole area, and after that we're not pushing individual projects through the same regulatory process they've done once for the whole area, which makes a certain amount of sense.
I need to see it fleshed out.
Yeah, I would like more details on here.
Most of these are actually pretty thin. This is a shockingly short document.
They call it a discussion paper. It's not a industrial strategy. It's starting to kick out ideas around, which I think there's some fair criticism of, okay, why are you putting up the discussion papers now? You've been in government for a year at this point, and you're constantly talking about the speed at which you are building things. Why are these, not all that detailed discussion papers only coming out now? We got, the Major Projects Office legislation passed about a year ago. You got a few already underway projects referred to it, but not much else has happened there. You do have to ask where this past year went.
Also, Scott, remember, this is a government that is keen on using AI to write its shit for it. So it could have been faster in theory, unless their AI bots weren't as effective or something else was holding it up in the government. But I have no proof these were written by AI, but I just know they have discussed in the past how they are keen to roll that out through some of their different reviews and documents.
Yeah. I know I've been quite critical on the podcast for quite a while about the Major Projects Office approach to things, and BC and Ontario's kind of similar-ish legislation around picking politically favored projects and pushing them through rather than fixing the broader regulatory morass that has inhibited the economic growth and building out a more resilient economy that has been identified as a pretty big problem. This at least seems to be doing a broader version of that. The special economic zones still have me a little concerned on it. Like you said, we're going to just have to wait for more details before making a judgment call on that. But at least a lot of the other regulatory processes of streamlining, reducing redundancies, making single decision points, and putting binding timelines, all those seem like steps in the right direction and aimed much broader than the narrow, well, we like this project, so we're going to push that one ahead through our special office, and anyone else just, well, that's too bad. You're stuck with the old system. So hopefully this goes somewhere and we get a country that is in a much better position to attract the major investments that it needs.
I would be actually shocked if any of these magic up the investment, because I think the reasons we don't get investment are less regulatory and more cultural. But that's a different conversation. I think up until about 10 years ago, the amount of foreign direct investment was climbing for the most part. The net investment flows were not nearly as skewed towards outgoing investment as opposed to attracting investment overseas. Like, there has been a step change in a lot of that within our adult lifetimes. And I'm not sure that can be entirely attributed to culture. Let's move to the next discussion paper from Transport Canada, Strengthening One Canadian Economy Through Trade and Transportation. This is the one that very few people paid attention to until they got to the section where it said, hey, what if we sold our ports? Or specifically, what if we changed laws to create a more modern and business-focused governance framework to help port authorities raise money, build major projects, and grow exports? Which does suggest port privatization, which kind of follows Carney also musing both in the budget or the fiscal update and now publicly about privatizing, selling off airports. And he has said both of these could be sold off or looked at being sold off to help fund new infrastructure investments. So, Scott, does it make sense for me to sell my car to buy a new car?
I mean, depends a little bit on the specifics, but not
Sure.
necessarily, yeah.
Or
Particularly
to sell my house to buy a new house.
Yeah. I mean, cars are also depreciating assets,
Yeah.
and like that in a way that ports will undergo a degree of depreciation for sure, but it's not quite the same on that. But yeah, this one kind of confuses me a little bit, because you asked people or asked the experts and business leaders, economists, everyone who has a significant either academic knowledge or direct practical stake in a lot of the bigger, more macro aspects of the Canadian economy. I don't think anyone would have put the port ownership structure anywhere near the top of their list on this one.
No. And we've talked about like natural monopolies make sense for some centralized ownership. And there are a few more naturalized monopolies than ports and airports that are just hard to like scale. Like we don't need, we just can't run multiple competing large container ship ports. And so having like one good one that connects to the railway seems like a place for government to be. And like airports, international airports especially, are really hard, complex beasts to run. And no one's just opening them privately.
Well, I mean, a lot of the European ones operate on a more privatized. Well, in fact, Canada owns quite a few of those in various degrees through mostly our pension plans. So it's not like it can't be done, but it's just, I don't entirely understand the point of this.
Where's the problem? Right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
No one looks at Canadian airports and goes, man, those suck. Like, shockingly, our airports are actually pretty decent.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of criticism on the how the government's leasing model ends up driving up airfares on it. Just, you'd think they just like lease the land at like a fixed rate or something, but instead the lease terms are that they get a percentage of the gross revenues, not net revenues, gross revenues. So anytime costs go up, like the airports end up getting squeezed and they end up still owing the government more money on that. So it leads to ever increasing fees that get bundled in the price of airfare on that. So like you could definitely level some complaints at how the Canadian model works on airports. That said, if the point is to raise some funds on it, that also doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Like both of these will probably generate some income. Mortgage fees are not insignificant at major ports, but what is unclear here is why the government actually needs that money on this. Because
it might just be ideological. Like it might just be how he approaches economics, that he thinks we just got to strip government for parts and sell it away to run it privately. Like he might just be a hardcore neoliberal or neoconservative style economist.
Yeah, but like even his like time at like the central banks and stuff doesn't necessarily like point as much on.
No, it's different than his past and what we were sold. It also doesn't make any sense within his, hey, we need to protect sovereignty. You're not protecting sovereignty when you're selling off your transportation infrastructure. Yeah, that's the thing. Is a lot of I think there's been a lot of hand-wringing about some of the economic stuff that I feel like if people had thought a little more through what elbows up actually meant, would not be surprised on it. But the port stuff and the airports are a head scratcher on that one. I'm definitely out of left field on that. But more to the point, the government can raise money on the bond market pretty easily. And there definitely gets a point where that becomes difficult to do. The country ran into that in the 90s. But we're still pretty far away from that. And the $25 billion that's supposed to go into the not actually a sovereign wealth fund, but yet another infrastructure fund with slightly shinier coat of paint on it. Yeah, that's not hard for the government just to go out and sell $25 billion in bonds to cover it. And they get a pretty decent interest rate on that too. So it's unclear why you would need to go for this in order to get the funds to seed into something on this. And I just wonder if any of this is going to break through, right? Because the Carney honeymoon is just going up and up as, Polyev can't find a substantive critique that isn't just, well, I would do that same thing, but my way, or in a way that would make you hate me, or just something different.
Eventually something will.
Yeah.
This one's starting, like, some of the selling off the airports, they're just breaking the honeymoon, but has definitely some people scratching their heads. The bit about the orcas will probably add to that. I don't think the regulatory stuff is going to do that at all. In the last election, both the Liberals and Conservatives were pitching that, and combined, they got 85% of the vote. Like, there's a massive Democrat mandate on the regulatory reform stuff. This, though, with some of the decisions on odd privatization choices, I think are on less secure political footing.
The other thing he's facing pushback on is the government's lawful access bill. It's Bill C-22, the efforts to try to modernize, in their words, some of our ways tech companies are regulated and required to hand over materials to different police and spy agencies. The current iteration has been criticized by privacy experts, by online Michael Geist type digital sovereignty type people, and is now also attracting a lot of criticism from big tech, both Microsoft, I believe, or Meta is criticizing it, and Signal has said if this bill goes through with the requirements that they build in a backdoor, in their words, that could let government read your messages or give them over to the US for some reason, they're just not going to let their app be available in Canada.
Like, fair enough. The Signal's whole selling point is that it's a secure end-to-end encryption system, and you can't you can't really change that without fundamentally undermining the value they offer on that. That's really true for anything. Is any backdoor is introducing an inherent vulnerability in a system, so there's like no real way around that. And yeah, I mean, good for them for speaking up on this. The UK has at various points tried to push forward stuff around introducing backdoors into systems and faced significant pushback on it, and hopefully there's the same here, because it does not make sense to undermine the cybersecurity for Canadians across the country on multiple systems.
The Liberals, for their part, are taking the same strategy they've done with every online/tech bill over the last decade, which is to say everyone else is a liar and exaggerating, and this bill is great and fine, and the tech companies are bluffing, which has always worked out great. And I am reading that from a link I clicked on Facebook. Oh, wait, Facebook didn't bluff. You can hate Facebook and the government in this situation, it turns out. But cool. So yeah, they have their majority. They can push this bill through if they want. It makes the cops and CSIS happy. It's reason enough for me to be skeptical of it, but considering that's like the only constituency who's like, yeah, this bill is great.
And did they expand what was in this? Because I remember when this sort of thing was first announced back, actually it was probably about a year ago now, in the first tranche of bills the newly elected Carney government put forward. That one I'm pretty sure was only targeted at ISPs and stuff. Did they get sloppy on the drafting on round 2, or did they expand it without really drawing any attention to that? Electronic
Frontier Foundation says Bill 22 is just a repackaged version of last year's surveillance nightmare C2. They describe it as forcing digital services, including telecoms, messaging, apps, and more, to record and retain metadata for a full year, expands info sharing with foreign governments, including the USA. So they can't read your messages, but they can do a lot to figure out who you're talking to and when. a lot of definitions are either not clear enough, like systemic vulnerabilities and encryption. They leave wiggle room.
Yeah, if it's just limited to metadata, I have less of a problem with it. But if you actually if they're actually forcing backdoors where the content becomes available, that's a whole different can of worms on that.
So, yeah, there's vague definitions like all these bills. A lot of groups are still speaking out. Even the Canadian Chamber of Commerce is unclear on the bill. They're like, we stand ready to help get this right. They're like, we support efforts to fight crime and ensure national security is protected, but we also value strong encryption and consumer privacy. So, yeah, not a huge constituency behind them here. But like I said, depends how far they want to push this. As I mentioned, I'm just waiting to see which is the thing that starts to slow the Liberals' ascent.
It's probably not going to be C-22.
No, but it doesn't help to add another straw to the back. And one other thing that might be slowing your ascent is avalanches on the Rogers Pass, as the Canadian Armed Forces decided to terminate their contract with Parks Canada to have those big howitzer guns blasting the mountains in our Sisyphean fight against nature. Our war on nature, our war on the mountains is ending. The mountains won.
Yeah, specifically the war on snow and avalanches.
No, we're just straight shooting mountains with big-ass guns. The guns are old. We don't have many munitions for them anymore, even though it kind of feels like the age of munition. You could just like find some guys with too much times on their hands to give them $50 and they'd love to machine this for you. I know it's a little more complicated than that, but
a little more complicated than that. Yeah, so these are the 105 millimeter C3s that been out of production for a while. NATO's moved over to the 155 millimeter as their standard ammunition. So there's already a shell shortage, and that's a shell shortage in the size that everyone's actually making. So yeah, these are just hard to maintain, and it's gotten to the point where the Canadian forces basically can't keep this sustain going forward, and it's decided to cease the operation. And in theory, it's going to revert back to Parts Canada to maintain the highways and transportation routes through the parts over the passes. But Parts
I think
Canada
it's pretty much just the one park, actually. The Armed Forces doesn't really do avalanche control, as far as I understand, except for this part of the Rogers Pass in Glacier National Park. And it's for historic reasons, but also because that pass is particularly high and treacherous. That makes a lot of other ways of dealing with avalanche control difficult. And there's just a lot of spots the road can get buried. And so at some point, someone's like, what if we shoot the fucking mountain with a big ass gun? And they went, that's a great idea. Let's keep doing it. And it worked for a while.
70 years this has been going on.
Yeah. And so if you drive the Rogers Pass, you will see, and my parents actually came out last weekend from Calgary and got stopped for an hour and a half because they were firing those things off, or possibly just, they were doing something. They were blowing avalanches up. And you could hear the explosions.
Yeah. So I know right after she finished her artillery officer training, that was one of her first postings, was doing avalanche control for winter.
Trying to defeat the mountains.
So, yeah, it's a shame this is Norway, because it is actually a pretty efficient way of doing things here. But yeah, it's what happens when you underfund a military for a long time and expect it to do a lot of different taskings in a lot of different areas with insufficient resources. Eventually, the deferred maintenance, deferred investments in equipment, and all of that is going to catch up to it. And it's kind of what's happened here.
I maintain this is primarily a prioritization issue. Keeping the highway open in Canada, this is Highway 1, the Trans-Canada Highway, should be someone's priority between Parks Canada, Transport Canada, the BC Ministry of Transportation, and I guess the Canadian Armed Forces. No one decided that this was high enough priority to keep those things going. But there is some talk about different ways using drones and new tech that might be able to place them without having to invest in new artillery guns on the highways.
Possibly. The challenge with that is these are very steep, high mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And
that get cloudy and foggy.
Yeah,
and cold,
it's
windy.
just a tough environment. I mean, in some of the other places, they just use helicopters to move the charges into place. Mm-hmm. And that's not the best solution here. So a smaller, lighter version of that gets battered around much more easily in inclement weather might not be the best solution on this.
It's a real Canadians. It's like the most Canadian story, I feel like. Just the like pure machismo to build the road over the mountain, to operate it in the most harebrained way, but it kind of worked for a long time. But then underfunding leads us to have to cancel the thing. Part of our heritage. And that has been Politicoast. Find links to everything we talked about at politicoast.ca. Support the show and get access to our exclusive Slack channel at patreon.com/politicoast. Our intro music is Beautiful British Columbia by Serge Plotnikov. Politicoast is a production of Leg and Boot Media. Audio editing provided by Jesse Woodward at listener-supported CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo. Learn more at chly.ca.